All right, hey guys, my name's Cheryl and I'm the founder of Moms Gone Wild. We're a group of women who usually get together and do really fun, exciting, adventurous things. But due to the COVID pandemic, of course, we had to halt our regular events. And we're trying to maintain a discussion online with regards to mental health and just checking in and making sure everybody is doing okay. And so one of the big issues that has come up over the past sort of, I guess, few weeks or month is the struggle that people are experiencing with home learning or crisis learning or pandemic, whatever we're doing now, because we are all moms in the group. And now we've kind of had to shift and all become teachers as well. And so I put the word out to you guys that we were going to be interviewing a teacher, and many of you submitted questions, which is really awesome. We really appreciate that. Some of them are pretty tough, and so I tried my very best to find the best teacher in Maple Ridge, and I think I got her here. No pressure. I have Sarah Neufeld here, and she's been a teacher for a number of years, and she teaches one of my own kids who is in kindergarten at Fairview Elementary. So hey Sarah, it's so good to have you on with us today, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel honored. It's so special that that you are connecting with your families this way. I think it's so cool. I feel so blessed to have met your family through your daughter, Sienna. She's just such a doll, and all the kids in the class are just so lovely. And as a community of Fairview, everyone's so fabulous that I feel honored for you to invite me today. So it's pretty cool.
So I just want to talk to you a bit before we get to people's questions about sort of the changes that you guys have been dealing with as teachers. I know the last time I saw you in person was actually during our student conferences. So wild. Like, we were sitting down with no idea any of this was going to happen. And you were discussing with Sienna what her goals are for the rest of kindergarten. And we were just planning for, normal school year to resume. And then spring break started right after that. And I think it was like the day after our interview with you that things went crazy, and people were staying at home, and everything changed. And so I know for you guys that you've also, we're adjusting to teaching at home, but you guys are adjusting with trying to figure out sort of how you can deliver an education that is doable over line, and you guys are figuring out the technological aspect and everything as well. And so I just kind of knew, like, how has it been?
The learning curve for sure has been huge. I'm so thankful that teachers are always so willing to share and dialogue about things, because if it wasn't for my colleagues and my friends who are teachers, that you would get to feel really lost in all of this. So it was really nice to be able to share and communicate and connect with other teachers about it all. Because yes, the learning curve was huge. There was technology to learn and we were allowed and permitted to connect with families. And it was tricky, but I think after, my husband's a teacher too, and him and I had lots of really good talks about this. And he asked me, Sarah, what's most important to you in all of this? And he said, put aside the technology, put aside everything else, curriculum, whatever, what's most important to you? And I was like, well, staying connected with my kids and my kids' family, that is the most important to me. And he's like, well, find a way to do that. And so that's how I was able to take a deep breath and go, okay, so this is what's important here, is making sure our kiddos are safe and comfortable. And so that's why, again, it's so cool that you're doing this, because this is what this is all about, is about connection and care for our little people all the way up into big people in grade 12.
Yeah, so you guys have an interesting perspective on it, because you teach elementary, kindergarten, and your husband teaches in the high school system. So I guess that we'll get to that question a bit later on, but you guys definitely have an interesting perspective that way, from trying to adjust to the two systems in your household, and also you have two girls of your own. And so part of the reason why I was really excited to have you on is because I think, you have really good insight as a teacher, but at the same time, you're also trying to be a homeschool family now as well, basically, or you know, do home learning with your daughters as well. So
Yeah.
again, just thanks so much for being here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you some tough questions that people sent in. And before we get started, I just want to tell everybody that Sarah and I did have a discussion through Fairview School with the School District 42, and they have very graciously sort of allowed us to have this conversation. So I just want to give them a shout out as well. So
and a shout out to my colleagues who I was able to have some really candid conversations about all of this too, and what their perspective on online learning and connecting with families is too. So I did write some of their thoughts down, and so I'll refer to them sometimes too.
That's amazing. I think Fairview has such a beautiful community, like you said, and I appreciate that you took the time to get other teachers' input on these questions as well, because some of them are not simple sort of answers. So the first question that we had submitted, I think a lot of us can relate to, and it says, I feel like I'm failing at this. It's tough navigating between the roles of a mother and an educator. And do you have any advice on this?
Well, I think first off, it's important that we let ourselves acknowledge that this is a tough time, and it's new for all of us, or at least most of us, and we all have different weights depending on our support systems and stressors that we may have. So we have to look within our own families and prioritize what is important for us. And for moms, we wear many hats. Parents, we wear many hats. We're drivers, and we're cooks, and we're organizers and schedulers and so many things, and now add teacher to this. But I think the hat that's most important is our mom hat, our parent hat, the one that makes our kids feel safe and secure and loved. Because if we're connecting that to learning, a stressed brain simply cannot learn. Brain has to feel calm and content and open to learning. So that's why as parents, we have to make sure our kiddos are feeling safe and secure before we approach any learning. And I think in all of this, trying is never failing. If we're trying, we're doing something right, for sure. And I think that in itself is something that our kids can learn in a huge way from. And being honest about what we're capable to do too. Not trying to do it all. I think lots of us as moms, we do try to do it all. And just scaling back, being honest about what we're capable of, and prioritizing what's important. Because we have, right now, there's families with babies and partners going to work and managing our own work schedules and all of these things and weights and stressors. I think it's good that we prioritize what's most important. So definitely the mom hat.
Totally. I appreciate all of that. And I think that while I was listening to you, you know, I realized that we are modeling during all of this. And so not only do our kids have the opportunity to learn academically, but through this whole situation, they really do have an opportunity to learn sort of the emotional, social side of it just from watching us to, responding in it. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that I've seen come up on my personal Facebook newsfeed is just sort of the struggle that parents are having between, you know, being a mom and being loving, and then they're trying to teach and maybe their kid's getting frustrated with the lesson. And so I've read a few posts which to me are like heart-wrenching, because they say, you know, I think I'm damaging my relationship with my child because it's just becoming so stressful. And so it sounds like your advice in that situation would be to really just focus on being that parent and being caring, because if they get to that stressful point, they're not as capable of learning. Is that right?
The brain shuts down too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Awesome. So that's a really helpful answer, I think. So I'm going to move on to the second question. And this is a really good one too. And it's, how can I help my child to concentrate on schoolwork while they're at home? And I think this one, like, definitely for us, it's so easy when there's so many distractions around, like, you know, their toys are here and the TV's there, and you know, maybe a bit of routine's gone out the window, like a parent might be working and you have to be out of one room and in another one. So do you have any advice on that?
Well, I think as parents, we know our kids' greatest strengths, but we also know their greatest challenges. And so with us, we're privy to that special sort of challenge sometimes, where because they feel safe with us. I think about back when my dad used to try to teach me algebra, or my mom was trying to teach me to drive as a teenager. That brings out like a visceral memory for the it's hard navigating both those roles. First question. So here are my thoughts, because it says my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. You're good now. Yep.
Okay. Did I freeze?
You did a little bit, but you're okay. It wasn't bad.
Okay. I think it's good first to figure out what works for whoever the parent is, or whoever the parent is sort of leading the online learning opportunities, to figure out a schedule that works for them first, managing whatever the time is, or like priorities of the day, things like that, whether it's work or baby's nap times or what have you. And then being intentional about involving our kids in that planning after you've sort of got some time parameters around it, and involving them in that, because then they have some empowerment and some ownership over those learning tasks. What we do in our family is, in the morning after breakfast, we open up the learning opportunities from the teachers. One of my daughters sends them weekly, and one sends them daily, but we look at them in the morning, we write them all out. My older daughter seems to like to write them all out. That's what works for her, and she also seems to be a little bit more efficient in the morning. And she also has prioritized one of the learning opportunities that her teacher gave her, which was this speech. And so that's what we prioritized helping her with. So we didn't get everything that was offered by the teacher done, and to us that's okay, because they are learning opportunities. And for my younger daughter, who's in grade 2, I sort of chunk her opportunities throughout the day, and she flits in and out of them. And I'm working in the background. My husband and I are both working full time at home, and I make myself available when I know she's doing that, but I don't hover, because at schools we don't hover. We want our kids to be independent and take on tasks, and that's just to be there to come in and out and help. So, but again, everybody has different schedules and workloads and responsibilities at home, so you have to figure out what works for you. But some physical stuff is keeping all the learning materials in one place is good, whether that means like the binder or sheets or passwords for whatever the online stuff is, because there seems to be a lot right now. So keeping it all in one physical space is good, and then having that visual, if that works for your kid. But again, not to be consumed by the list. It's there to help and support, not to stress.
Right. Yeah, I think for us too, while you were saying that, it's been a bit of a learning curve and sort of trial and error on my side, like where I think like I am most efficient in the morning, and one of my daughters is most efficient in the morning. One of them, you can probably guess which one would rather lie in bed and roll out with her 12 stuffies with her and kind of, take on her own day, and she'll kind of come and let me know when she's ready. And in the beginning, I definitely was, I think, causing us both sort of unnecessary stress by putting this expectation on both of us that we would start the school day at 8:20, because in the beginning I was like, I want to keep as much of this normal as I can, or as similar to school as I can. And then it took me like a day to realize, like, this isn't school, like this is something that's totally different from what school was. And we're not going to be able to get through as much academically as I think you guys would probably teach in a day on some days. On other days we do really well, and we end up like blowing through everything that is sent in an hour or whatever, and then we go on to do other things, and that's fine. But there are days where I quit as a teacher after the first 10 minutes. And you know what, I've kind of come to learn that that's okay too, because my kids are more willing to come back the next day if I'm not, sort of causing that stress.
For sure. The learning needs to be positive, and learning and growth are very connected. So while it's good to set goals for ourselves and think about opportunities and have expectations for ourselves, but to also be ready to let them go and just evolve and change as it works for our families.
For sure. I think that's been a big learning point about this entire thing in general, is just learning to let it go. Like, we're not in control of a lot right now.
So true.
This is just like a little micro version of the big picture of what we're dealing with almost.
Yeah, for sure. Every day it seems, while it brings there's a lot of sameness, but there's a lot of uncertainty around things too. So it's juggling those things. It's odd sometimes.
Yeah.
All the time. Odd all the time.
Very odd all the time. Next question is, I'm worried about the social aspects of school that my child is missing out on. Is there anything we can do as parents to help our children to feel closer to the people that they miss?
That's such a good question, because like, schools hold so much more than just intellectual learning. It's where our friends are, it's where we make our connections, it's where we problem solve, where we community build, all those beautiful things that are supposed to be part of school. So we're missing that right now. My kids are missing their friends in a huge way right now. And
heck, we're all missing our friends.
Yeah, that's why I paused for a minute there, because I miss my class. I miss my kids so much. It's, I feel fortunate that we live in a time of technology where we can make connections in so many different ways, but we really are all missing that human contact, that everydayness that life and relationships, are built on, right? What was I going to say? I think when our kids have feelings about it, it's really important to validate their feelings around missing their friends. And if they're sharing that they're missing people, aunties or grandmas or cousins or whomever it may be, it's really good. We have to let them talk about it and validate their feelings around it. And kids share in all sorts of random moments, and it's good to be present for those moments. I know my kids, it seems to be at bedtime where right as I'm tucking them in, they have this big share, whether it's a worry or some sort of big feel. And it makes sense. It's when I unpack my day too, and I think about, try to collect my thoughts and figure things out. But the kids can share all over the place. When they're driving in the back seat, they're talking or whatever. So I think it's good to try to be present in that moment and listen to them and in their sharing around that. But if you don't have time at that moment because you're on a work call or you're putting the baby down or whatever it is, to let them know it's important that you'll talk to them about it later and make a plan to talk about it later. I think about like when, this is not the same example, but when you're complaining because you don't want to clean your bathroom and you maybe text a friend and say, oh, I don't want to clean my bathroom. Like, and then your friend is not going to say, well, here's some great cleaning tips. They're going to be like, I get you. I don't want to clean my bathroom either. Like you want to feel validated around that. So kids need to have their feelings validated around it and have you participate in that sharing too. Like I tell my kids, I'm missing grandma right now too. And what can we do about that to make ourselves feel more connected to them? Like I said before, we're so lucky that we can, have a FaceTime dinner, or we can Zoom someone or send out a text or an audio message or whatever. But it's still not the same as that human contact that we all so desire right now. But being intentional about setting up those opportunities for our kids I think is good. They have a few of those apps out there that they're trying to connect kids, and with parent supervision and stuff, they can be, I think, successful. With some kids, they get on there and then they just end up staring at each other. So it's good if we can set up something for them. Like, that's what I mean about being intentional. One, make the plan and say, oh, why don't you guys talk about what you were reading today, if they're from the same class and they read the same book, or let's draw a picture together, or something like that, so they can have a shared experience, because that's part of relationships too. I thought of a book that is in my collection that I really like. It's called Invisible String. Have you heard of that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's lovely. It brought my girls a lot of comfort when we had a big loss in our family a few years ago. And the message around it is that people are always with us. The people that we love and care about, they're connected to us with an invisible string, so that they're always with us in some sense. And so the book talks about lots of different things, not just loss, but it talks about when we're just away from them at school or what have you. So I think in this situation, it's appropriate. So it's a good book.
Awesome. I'll get the information from you and I'll link it in the description box.
Okay.
Video. As we're talking, I just actually learned from what you were saying. My kids, when this first started, we downloaded Kids Messenger fairly quickly and they don't get a lot of screen time, so they were really excited about it. They're like, oh, we can be on the iPad and talk to our friends. And just yesterday, one of my youngest daughter's friends, who sent me a message and said, Sienna has just sent her kid like 100 gifts. And I was like, what? Because I was making lunch and she asked me, can I go on this, thing and talk to my friends? And I'm like, yeah, sure, and we did set out rules ahead of time, but she is only 5.
Mm-hmm.
So from what you just said, that just gave me some really good tips for, just being more mindful of it and having suggestions for them, like, hey, why don't you talk to so-and-so at whatever time, or maybe you can just write them a note, right? Like if they can't be on at that time. Or send a picture or something like that. So awesome. Yeah, those are all good tips. And the other side of that too that I really resonated with was just relating to them that we're feeling the same way. Mm-hmm. And that, I think taking the pressure off ourselves, that a lot of this situation we can't solve. Like it does suck. Mm-hmm. Like it does suck not being able to hug grandma or not being able to share a snack with your friend. And I think that there is comfort in knowing that other people are going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. As a big part of this video and sharing this video is just, I hope that people understand that we're all going through this together. As much as we might feel alone in our houses right now, I think it is important to remember that, we're not really alone. There are lots of us with invisible strings everywhere. I love that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll move on to number 4, which is, how important are academics during all of this? Are families having a hard time keeping up with the expected workload? Should we feel worried about falling behind? Well, again, at risk of sounding like a broken record, our emotional and our physical well-being is always the most important, and it has to be our priority here. And our basic needs have to be met first before, like I said before, any learning can happen. So again, do what works for your family, scheduling time that works for your family around this, and not being consumed with getting it all done, because learning has to be positive and meaningful. So as long as the learning that's happening with your kids is positive and meaningful, carry on. But if it's causing stress for the child or the family, then it's time to rethink and reevaluate, and be free to go and connect with your child's teacher, because we're out there and want to be offering help too. And our education support systems are functioning in very different ways right now, so that there might be more access to help and opportunities that you didn't know
were out there before but are available now because it is functioning so differently. I think a big positive about this is the connections between our educators and our families. I don't know if there's been a time where we've understood this struggle or shared this struggle more than right now. Parents are at home being educators, educators are at home who are parents as well and experiencing that too. So reaching out is important to do in all of this, and understanding that, I don't know why I have that struggle is real in my head right now. You know that meme? Oh man. But when we go back to school, and we all gather and things are as we understand them, schools are back in session, whenever that happens, we don't know. The first thing teachers are going to do is going to be to check in with our kids to make sure their, emotional and physical well-being is good, and that they're content and they're safe. That's always how it's been in schools, that we want to check in with our kids and who they are before we're going to do any sort of launching into curriculum or what have you. So we've always taught kids before we have taught curriculum. But when we do come back together, we'll just teach where our kids are and we'll go from there.
I think that statement alone is going to reassure a lot of people that, obviously you guys are recognizing that the end of the school year of 2020 isn't going to be the same as the end of any other school year probably in history has been. And so if we do gather, I don't know when, this year or maybe in September, that you guys are going to do those evaluations, I think it's going to bring a lot of people a lot of just stress relief and knowing that, it's okay, like it's all right. And I think also that all kids are different anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not every kid starts the grade at the same level regardless of what's going on, right?
We've always taught where our kids are, not based on their age or their grade. It's based on who they are, and we launch from there. Kids before curriculum, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, like, just reiterating that people should feel comfortable to reach out to their child's teacher and just have a conversation with them. Because I just know we're really fortunate that we have two amazing teachers right now. And I know that you guys are wishing or hoping that you can support us in whatever way you can. And I think that puts it on us to ask for help when we need it and to be honest about things. And I think that if people are struggling at home, that I hope they aren't doing it silently. Like, I hope that they're reaching out to the teacher, and if they don't feel comfortable to reach out to the teacher, maybe to the principal or another administrator or a friend or whatever, if they're having mental health issues.
For sure. Our village is definitely different right now, but we're still a village. It looks different, but we're still trying to connect and help each other out, for sure.
Awesome. Number 5 is pretty specific, but this question actually was asked by a number of people who have children entering kindergarten, and they want to know if there's anything that they can do specifically to prepare their child for, hopefully, September's kindergarten.
Yeah, kindergarten is such a milestone for our kids and for families too. Like families who are sending their first off to kindergarten, or they're sending their baby off to kindergarten. It's a huge emotional journey and a big milestone for families, for sure. And some of those things that we do to prepare our kiddos and families for a fall startup is everything is looking very differently right now. And I know specifically our district is still working out some of the details around that for our Welcome to Kindergarten programs. I've been proud to be part of the Welcome to Kindergarten initiative for a while, and they have some fabulous resources. You probably remember you got some of them last year for Sienna. We're still trying to figure out how the best way to get those out to families are. So we're still figuring that out. We're talking about that at the kindergarten meeting on Monday, and how each school is going to reach out in different ways, because we want our kindergarten kids, our new kindergartens, and their families to feel excited and to look forward to school, and for it to all to be a positive thing for them. And so there's lots of different things to navigate. What I would usually say at home for families to do at home leading up to preparing for kindergarten is to provide your kids an opportunity to be away from you. So that's challenging right now, right? When our expectations to be home and in our family units are what are keeping us safe and healthy right now, or what our current understanding of that is right now. But I was thinking of ways that you can do that in your home. So like playing in the bedroom with the door shut, or going to the bathroom with the door shut. That's a big one, right?
I think moms are gonna love you with all these suggestions.
Or taking even taking recycling out to the garage and putting the recycling away, giving those opportunities to do things on their own, and showing them that you believe in them. You got this. Like, you can go to the bathroom with the door shut, or walk out to the garage, and because sometimes that's frightening for kids, and giving them other opportunities to be independent, are like those physical independent things, zipping a coat or putting on shoes, that kind of practice, practicing a home lunch, like a school lunch at home, where they get all the little containers and stuff that you may pack a lunch for your kiddo, so that they have the opportunity to snap lids and pop things back on and pop their water bottle and things like that. Just that confidence around some of those independent skills. What else did I write down here? Okay, and checking out the space. So if families know the school that their child is going to be attending for kindergarten, to go check out the space. I mean, maintaining social distance right now, and of course the playground is not as friendly and as inviting as it will be again one day, but checking out that space and knowing what the grounds of the school is good. And I think the schools are going to make some opportunities for one thing that was suggested was a video tour of the school. So I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe that'll be an option for Fairview. And lots of talking, like the power of oral language, and how our strengths in that connect to our literacy, our making friends, communicating, problem solving, all of those things. So lots of talking to our kids and getting them to extend on their thoughts. So if they're building something, what are you building? Oh, cool. Why did you put that there? Oh, that's neat how you made it so tall. Or, how did you get it so tall? Like, those extension questions. Or after you've read a book, or even watched a movie or a show, I really like the part when how about you? What part did you like? Oh, cool. Why did you like that part? So conversation is huge. And also getting our kids to have some opportunities to play with school tools, pencils and scissors and chalk and all that kind of that good stuff, so they're confident around that. It doesn't seem alien to them. But again, it's that social part that's tricky to navigate. So being intentional around that, and having some of those FaceTime conversations with family, and there's also some great books out there, fiction books for new kindergarten friends that I have in my collection as a teacher, but I also read with my girls as a mom. I'm sure you know The Kissing Hand.
Yeah.
That beautiful story of like love being in the palm of that sweet little raccoon's hand, which is kind of that same thread of invisible strength, that like love is with us wherever we go. So yeah.
Those are all awesome ideas. And I know for the Fairview community, and actually it's publicly available, the Strong Start teacher, Kathy, had set up a Facebook page. Cool. And I've been following it just because, Sienna went to Strong Start last year, and Kathy's a good friend of ours. But she's posting some really interesting and valuable resources there as well. I don't know if any of the other local schools are doing that, but it might be worth
Oh,
checking.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And our kindergarten helping teacher, her name is Melanie. She also has plans to send out some literature by email for families about, you know, things, resources to think about and ideas to try with your kiddos and things like that. So
That's awesome.
Keeping those communication channels open for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And the last question, which I think is a good one, especially based on our discussion, my kids are obviously young. I have grade 2 in kindergarten. You teach Sienna in kindergarten. So I know there's a lot of people out there with kids who are in high school who are feeling maybe different stressors than those of us with younger kids, having sort of different conversations with their kids. And so is there any advice that you would give differently for those parents?
Well, I've been a kindergarten, this is my 20th year of teaching, and I've been a kindergarten or grade 1 teacher most of my career. And so my journey with the kids has always been a social emotional one, where I'm supporting them as little people and looking at the whole child and supporting how they make connections and we build community as a class. But I think even like, I had a good talk with Ryan, my husband, about this because he teaches high school, because I asked him. And I know, and he validated this too, that this thread of understanding how important the social emotional for our kids into our youth is always has to be the priority. It always has to be the priority. It evolves and it looks different through every grade, but social and emotional health, our emotional and physical well-being is always going to be a priority in our schools. So for our parents of kids who are older, their job looks a little different because perhaps a teenager or a tween is not going to be as transparent about their feelings. Maybe they're demonstrating their anxieties or worries in a different way, or they're communicating them with their peers instead of their parents, because that's part of how their brain is supposed to evolve and grow. So parents have a different job in, you know, checking in on their kids. And so I think it's good that they do be explicit or intentional about asking how their kid is doing. How are you doing? How are you coping with things? And letting them know that their health and well-being is more important to you than their academics, for sure, but encouraging them to prioritize what they can do, but also that they supporting them to connect with their teacher. You know, a high school student is going to be more likely to reach out with an email to their teacher than their mom or dad is. So supporting them and giving them the go ahead, like, why don't you ask for help? And, or why don't you just shoot Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so an email and ask about this. So I think that's good that, so like I said, the advice is the same, but just might look differently.
Right, yeah, I think that it just comes back to, again, just being, like, communicating with people, which is, I get it, it's tricky now. It's, you know, I used to love just popping in after school if I had something to talk to you about. It was convenient and I didn't feel like I was putting you out at all, which maybe some people might struggle with now. But again, I think it comes back to just, I think most teachers become teachers because they really want to enrich kids' lives. And so, and that didn't stop right now. And so I think, you know, if people are struggling, I've heard some people talking about struggling with deadlines for homework and feeling like things were really tight. And I think that it's just wise to keep that communication open and just to say, like, hey, this is too much for us right now, or, you know, I'm struggling with this particular thing. Is there a way that I could get extra help with it?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. For sure.
Thank you so much for being on today, Sarah. Those are all the questions that we were submitted. And I think your responses are just gonna make people feel like they're capable of getting through this, and just, yeah, reminding everybody that it is a different time and it's okay to let things go, and it's okay to feel the feels and to talk about them. So
Feel the feels. Yes.
is that a thing? Is that what it's going to be?
I agree. This is our parenting journey right now, and this is part of our kids growing up journey right now. So we didn't plan for this, but here it is, and so we want to try our best. We always want the best for our kids, right? And so, like I said before, like we can learn so much from trying and being honest about what we're capable of, and give ourselves that grace in trying.
For sure.
And as educators, I know for sure, like we've always known this, that there's all kinds of learners, and there's so many different pathways to learning. There's not just one pathway to learning. And that's another huge positive, I think, for myself, for my colleagues who have been blown away by the commitment of families, and who have all found these different pathways to learning in their own way, whether it's movie marathons or baking, or I saw some kid the other day, he was about 10 years old, mowing his lawn. And I was like, pathway to learning right there. So there's so many.
My sister-in-law, her kids are older than mine. Her oldest two are in high school, and she has them cooking and like dinners, and it's actually one of their school assignments. And I'm like, that's genius, because that's like such a good life skill to have. And
yes.
pay off into the future, and it's maybe something that otherwise they wouldn't have learned on such a level. And so I think that as much as this is a struggle right now, and we might not be learning in the typical sort of curriculum layout, that we are all learning as we go, and we're going to keep learning. And I remember when I talked to you on the phone and I first asked you to do this interview with me, you said something that has just stuck with me this whole time. And what you said was, you know, for the parents who don't feel like they're capable of being a teacher, like they've been a teacher all along. Like that I think you said that we really are the first educator and the primary educator for our kids. And
the first and the best teacher.
Well, I wasn't going to say that about myself. It's a pretty tough competition, but I think it's so true. Like after you said it, I realized, I'm like, well, yeah, you know, I did keep my child alive for the first 4.5 years till she got to you. And, you know, she had learned a lot about life already at that point. And as much as we don't realize it, they are always learning from us. So
yeah, absolutely. For sure.
The credit we deserve, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mama's rock. Thanks for letting me be part of this, Cheryl. I appreciate it so much.
You're so welcome, Sarah, and thank you so much for being here. Please pass on our thanks to your colleagues too for chiming in, and to your husband.
For sure, and my daughters who have been waving at me from the window.
I'm like roasting because I'm sitting 2 feet from my window, and now the sun's coming in here, so I'm looking like I have a sunburn. I just want to end by saying to anybody watching this, if they have any sort of other topics that they'd like for Moms Gone Wild to cover in interview, or if they're struggling with something, that they can always reach out to me. I will put the contact information below. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you guys next time.